Is there a timer or something?
She's keeping time.
All right. So our proposition is that the U.S. government should minimize its role in the space industry. And what we mean by minimize is that we want them to deregulate exploration, spend less on NASA, and where possible, privatize space research. And our first significance claim is that money spent on NASA could go to other programs. So the current total money that is spent on NASA right now is $19.5 billion for the 2019 federal budget, and it will receive an additional $400 billion from supplemental funds. And so that's a lot of money, and this could go to other underfunded government programs and other things that need more funding. So some of these things is that schools that are underfunded may have use for this money. And in an article written by Corey Turner of NPR, he states that to make ends meet, schools are cutting back everywhere they can, and some are hitting bone. So in the rural Coolidge Unified School District, southeast of Phoenix, had already cut its arts, music classes, as well as its librarians, but that wasn't enough. So the district still struggled to attract and keep good teachers because it couldn't pay them well. From the same article, another quote is that as of 2014, the most recent year of available census data, 35 states were spending less overall per student than they did in 2008. Why does that matter? And that's because state dollars on average account for nearly half of the school's revenues. And other major source of funding comes from local governments. So what's happening is that these local governments and state and school revenues, they don't have enough to support their programs to keep these teachers. And so maybe having the government explore space isn't the best way to spend our money. Another government, underfunded government program is the United States Postal Service. Eric Kinanen, in his article, Government Programs Are Dangerously in the Red, he states that thanks to payments required to cover future retiree health care costs, the Postal Service reported $5.6 billion in losses in fiscal 2016, a $500 million increase from the year before. And this was the 10th consecutive year in which the USPS incurred $1 billion or more in losses, and that this would be unsustainable. And the USPS, I believe, is a more important government program than NASA, since many companies rely on the transportation of mail and to function, and generally the entire population of the United States relies on USPS for these services. Also, the U.S. infrastructure is in disrepair, so helping out the U.S. infrastructure could help. We could use money from NASA directly to the U.S. infrastructure, as Jordan Golson states that the American Society of Civil Engineers says that the U.S. needs massive investments in all essential infrastructure, from bridges and airports to dams and railways. According to the Society's most recent infrastructure report card, the U.S. earns a D+ for its infrastructure. So from this, we can tell that we need to divert funds from NASA to other things in the United States that are sorely lacking. For our inherency claim, we say that private space is more efficient because of less regulations. And so what we're talking about here is something called red tape. And Barry Bozeman from Syracuse University, in a Journal of Public Administration Research and Theory, a peer-reviewed journal, he states that red tape usually implies excessive or meaningless paperwork, a high degree of formalization and constraint, unnecessary rules, procedures, and regulations, inefficiency, unjustifiable delays, and as a result from all this, frustration and vexation. So red tape is a common theme when debating government programs, because from the same article, he states that in the United States and other democratic governments, sovereignty carries with it legitimate coercive power of such force that citizens inevitably demand sharp constraints on officialdom and safeguards, usually procedural, against abuse. This is a chief point in Kaufman's analysis of red tape. He is quite correct in noting that these procedural safeguards create many great rules, regulations, and procedures. This concept of red tape. So, in private companies, this red tape sort of falls away because the company wants to make their customers happy, and so with more red tape, with less red tape, they're able to serve them quickly and more efficiently than the government could. And so for our solvency, we can say that current government projects should be outsourced to private space companies. And one of the reasons for this is that this is already happening. And privatization decreases cost, decreases revenue. According to Lauren Grush in her article, NASA is saving big bucks by partnering commercial companies like SpaceX. So SpaceX is creating a crude version of its Dragon capsule, while Boeing is developing an entirely new vehicle called the CST-100 Starliner to ferry astronauts to and from the space station. Neither of those vehicles are complete yet, but the crude Dragon project did to cost NASA $2.2 billion, while the Starliner will cost $3.27 billion, and that's still cheap compared to another program that NASA is developing independently called Orion. And the amount that Orion would cost NASA is around $19.4 billion, and that's a lot less compared to outsourcing to private companies. And finally, so privatization has also been shown by the New Jersey Privatization Task Force in an article written by Russell Nicholas from a magazine called Government Magazine. Over the last several decades, the government at all levels throughout the world, public sector's role has increasingly evolved from direct service provider to down direct provider or broker of services. Governments are relying far more on networks to public, private, and non-profit organizations to deliver services. So this is already occurring. Privatization is already happening, so why not do that for space?